Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of our podcast, Is Breakfast Included? How are ya? Good? Great. On the show this week, my good friend Bert LeCato. Bert owns a company called InTuneGP. They're based in Onondaga, Virginia, and basically that's what they do. They make custom guitar picks. He started this company way back in 2000. He was working as a firefighter / EMT. I think they go hand in hand. Anyway, he started this company in his garage and he's built it up. Here we are almost 22, 23 years later, and he makes guitar picks for everyone. The biggest bands you think of, he makes their guitar picks. The biggest companies you think of, he makes their guitar picks. Plus, he also does guitar picks for birthdays, bar mitzvahs, weddings, funerals if you want them. He does it all. And he's such a good guy. He didn't want to do this, and I've been twisting his arm because I've been working with him since 2007, and his story's quite interesting, man. You know, there's a lot of guitar pick manufacturers out there, one in particular that you have to compete with for everything, and he's, done quite well for himself competing with them. Bert is a great guy, and I think that's what makes his company so good because it's a very personal company. Anyway, it was a great conversation. I had a lot of fun with him. He told some great stories, and he told me what he liked for breakfast. So let's check it out. All right. Well, tell everyone who you are.
All right. I'm Bert LeCato, and I am the president / owner of InTuneGP. So we've been doing this. Yep.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, we've been doing this since 2000. So this is going to be our 23-year anniversary this month.
2000. I guess I met you around 2007. You had been in it, I guess, for 7. When I met you, I want to say you were still in your shop in your garage.
Very likely. When I started, it wasn't 2000. I was in the garage. I was a firefighter, so I only worked 10 to 12 shifts a month, and so I started piddling with this. I had ordered some. It took forever to get them. I wasn't happy with them. And I was like, I might be able to figure this out. And it could be something cool to do as a side hustle.
Yeah.
And I was in the garage. Man, time flies. And I can barely remember yesterday. So now we're going back. Probably out of the garage, maybe in 2005. Because eventually I left the firehouse. The two were interfering with one another. And so, you're on the ambulance, on the way to a call, taking a guitar pick order, and things like that. So it's like, okay, that can't continue to happen. And then I was, it started growing to the point that all my days off, I was spending 12, 15, 16 hours in the garage. And so eventually something had to give.
Right on, man. So you said you ordered some for yourself. I take it you're a player.
I am. A hobbyist. I'm not. I don't feel I'm that great. Someone's always better than you, and you're always better than somebody else. So some of my friends who play around, they're like, "Oh man, you're good," and I'm like, "Nah." So I do it for fun, and it comes in spurts. I'll take a break every now and then I jump back into it. And so summer's coming. The acoustics will start getting their workouts.
Yeah. Those humidifiers will come into play.
Oh, man. Yeah, I keep a couple of my guitars in their case pretty much all winter. I'll pull them out and play them, but, it's just trying to humidify all the spaces that I keep all of my different guitars that it's almost impossible.
I know, right? So when did you decide? Like you weren't happy with the ones you ordered. You said, "Hey, I think I can figure this out." When did you decide to how far into it were you when I'm like, "Hey, I'll see if anyone else wants this stuff"? And why guitar picks?
When I started it too, it wasn't just guitar picks. I mean, I've been around this area forever, so I knew a lot of people that had their own businesses and things like that. So I mean, I was doing cups and fly swatters. Picks was my goal, but I mean, once I got set up, I could print pretty much anything. So I was doing all kinds of little stuff, keychains, cups, all this stuff in the process of working towards the pick aspect of things. And then suddenly, you get a couple customers, then you get a couple that you've actually heard of. And, then you get a few of them that send you to other customers that you've heard of, and the band started getting bigger and more well-known. And it just, over a couple year span, it just started getting bigger and bigger to where it was what I was doing when I was not at the firehouse. And it started to kind of, early on, my home phone was the business phone number. So you can only imagine how quickly that got old. So 3:00 in the morning, somebody calls you, because they're somewhere else, on the road, don't realize how late it is, had one too many drinks and decided they wanted to order picks, and you roll over, in the middle of the night and it's like, hey man, how you been? And I'm like, oh, so it took a few years too for my home number to kind of disappear, I believe.
So what you said, you started out, you had a few bands call you, then a few bands that you knew. What was the first order you got from the band when you were like, whoa, this is real? Like,
I don't know. That's a tricky one, I guess, because, you start picking up people that, just average customers who wanted custom picks. I do remember the first band that we printed for that I'd actually heard of was Dust for Life. So that, I don't know if you've heard of them. They've kind of come and gone a couple times over the years.
mm-hmm.
Good bunch of guys, but they were like one of the first that just, actually had a CD, type thing that, you had heard of, they were on tour. But it started kind of, at that point, started to grow to where I started recognizing more bands. One of the early on metal guys, Chimera, and they jumped on board and we started working together, and that led to Kerry King, just from those guys, and also a great friendship. So it's it was slow building, but once it started, it just started to kind of mushroom. And and you know how the industry is. Everybody knows everybody to a certain extent. So word of mouth is a big deal. And, I'm doing metal bands. And then one country artist calls up. And now I'm doing 10 country artists.
Yeah.
And it just kept, the snowballing effect.
Yeah.
And just started spreading over all genres.
Well, that must have made you feel really good. I mean, in my line of work, I'm constantly, I have a boss who's on the search for the perfect pick. And you know how artists can be like this. And we keep coming back to you guys, so that must make you feel good that your picks are quality and you're competing with really the big guy.
No, it does. It does for sure. And, after 23 years, of course, all we do are picks. So we don't do a lot of the other accessories or any electronics and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess in a sense that is what would make us a smaller company, so to speak, is that we're not pumping out, pedals, guitars, strings. We do what we know, and we stick to that. And we are fortunate. I'm not going to say we're the best pick for every player. I'm not going to say we're always perfect, but we work hard to, provide a good quality product and really service. That's even almost more important, I feel like, than the quality of the product. And sometimes we come across issues with materials or this or that, or, mistakes get made. So for me, it's all about making that right. You own it, you make it right, and that person will come back, that client will come back to you, time and time again for taking care of them.
When you started in your garage, it was just you, correct?
Yep.
And what does InTune consist of now, as far as a crew?
Well, it was just me in the garage with a very old rebuilt machine that I had to kind of make fixtures and, just come up with all this stuff to make this process halfway functional. It moved from there to a new machine, a little bit fancier, custom built for what I was doing. Then it led to having a buddy help me out, on his days off, still in the garage. Then it led to my buddy and my girlfriend at the time helping me out. And then at that point, actually early on, we were not manufacturing the picks. We were doing all the printing, but we were not manufacturing the picks. And we got to a point that we were outselling the company that was manufacturing the picks.
Oh, okay.
And they cut us off. So at that point, they were like, they found out where their product was going and that we were, surpassing them, and they cut us off. So that's when the garage got shut down and moved out to a larger building because it was time to start manufacturing, which was better anyway because it allowed me and us to control the quality even better.
Mm-hmm.
If you run into an issue, then you're the one that was in the middle of that when it happened and you know how to fix it. So at this point, we moved into a larger facility. There were still only 3 of us, but it was a full-time thing for all 3 of us. Then it became 4, all still in a outside facility, but smaller.
Yeah.
And, now we're in a much larger building. We staff 10. Sometimes we'll bring in some additional help. But yeah, so now we're in a much larger building. Now I can honestly, I've since moved, but at one point I could honestly hit my house from either one of my facilities with a baseball. So I didn't move very far. Just kept moving into larger and larger areas.
Yeah.
So now I can not hit my house with a baseball, but almost, maybe with a baseball and a bat. So yeah, it's so now we're in just a larger facility. It's set up much better than it was initially. Obviously, we needed more space. We have more people, and it's a process. And that's probably one of the biggest things that people don't understand is it's a process. When you call to order custom picks, they're small, they're consumables, but it's a process from start to finish. It's not a 30-minute, oh, here you go, and sometimes, waiting till the last minute sometimes, need them yesterday, flying to Europe next week, that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, I know all about that.
Yeah, and I've done pretty good over the years getting most people trained, to understand. But, if someone comes through, we don't do a lot of tours, but we have had some artists come through. And, when they come through and walk through the building, they're like, wow, I will never ask for a rush job again, because there's so much more to it than people realize.
Yeah, yeah. What is the largest order of picks you've ever got? And what artist was it, if you can say that?
Early on, we did 500,000 for Black Sabbath.
Wow.
Now this was a promo thing. So at that time, it was not for Tony or any of the guys. It was a promotional, licensed Black Sabbath thing. And honestly, so far or so long ago, I don't remember what the promotion was. But we get large orders, but anything 5, 10, 20,000 pieces is kind of large. Just it takes obviously more time to produce. We just finished up 100,000 piece job. This was for a business. Most bands, some bands go through a lot of picks, but they don't go through 100,000 of them. So generally, when you get those larger orders, it's for a promotion or company, handouts, things like that. So average order, 500, 1,500, 2,000, something like that.
Yeah, yeah. I think we average about 4 or 5 every time we order. So you do a lot of bands. That's your main thing. But you also do, like, pretty much anyone can call and order, like you said, like a business. What's the strangest event or a client you've ever had, man?
You got to think on that. But to kind of a quick answer, I mean, we do birthdays, bar mitzvahs, wedding favors. We've done picks for anything that you can link music to, which is almost anything, whether, the groom of the wedding is a guitar player or whether, the newlyweds are just music lovers.
Yeah.
Birthdays generally, one of the, the person having the birthday is, a guitar player or something. So funerals, you know, I mean, so anything from birth, you know, with a birth date and a baby picture and the length and the weight, right to the final day, you know, when, you know, life's over. So we've done picks for probably just about any and every event that you can think of. Kind of answers your question.
Yeah, it does. It does. It does. Man, I've got a question for you. Maybe you can answer this. Since this is your business and this is what you do, this is your whole livelihood. I've been collecting picks since I was probably 15 years old. I caught a red beach pick and I was so like in awe that it had his name and it had the band name. I didn't know anything about it. What is it about guitar picks that make them so like highly like sought out? Certain ones, and you know, like there's bands that have different picks for every tour, and then there's cats out there that collect and they need every pick from every tour or every pick that was within one tour. What is it about guitar picks, man, that people are just fascinated by? Guys like me, you know.
Well, you know, I think we all, you know, have a collector in us. I honestly don't collect picks. I have some. I just like you. I caught picks back in the day. Probably part of what gave me the idea, and you know, it makes someone feel like a rock star, even if they're not to throw a pick out. And then for the fan, it's just something awesome to catch. When it comes to the collecting aspect, you know, it's we all. I think, especially us guys, you know, we all like to collect things and fill our man caves up with, you know, toys and just, you know, whether it's toys, tools, you know, I collect vinyl. I'm not as active collecting footballs anymore, but I have 50 footballs. You know, I don't need 50 footballs, but each one of them's a different game or a different, you know, this, that, or the other. And you know, it's just that, and they're small. You can have a lot of them.
Yeah.
Everyone's different and cool. And, you know, for me, when it comes to the music memorabilia, you know, I think guitar pick collectors, I don't think they even care half the time what band it is, what artist it is. It's a guitar pick.
Yeah.
For me, it would be a specific artist or this or that. You know, when it comes to my vinyl, it's, I have a wide variety, but there are still certain artists that I'm like, I have to have an original pressing. Then there's other artists that I'll go buy the repress. I'm not spending that kind of money, you know, on this particular artist. So it's just that collector in us. I mean, we all do it. I've driven my wife crazy over the years collecting stuff, and now I've just kind of gotten it down. It's tools and vinyl, you know. And I'll step over guitar picks, to be honest. If I'm on at a show and I'm on the stage wandering around, backstage, wherever, and I see a guitar pick, it is very, very seldom I'm going to reach down and pick it up. Whether it's ours, whether someone else produced it, whether, you know, it doesn't matter. I see enough of them. You know, we do have an in-house collection. So technically I collect guitar picks, but I only collect what we do. And we use that as a quality type thing too. So if someone does have an issue, we make a mistake, or we have something going on in our process, we can go back, we can check, you know, the product, make sure it's good, or figure out it's bad, figure out what went wrong. But in the end, it still stays in house. And so, I mean, I probably do have, you know, millions of guitar picks in my collection. But it's not an intentional, you know, collector's thing. I don't go out looking for those, but it's a unique thing. Downside is plastic degrades. And if you don't take care of those picks, and sometimes even if you do, you know, you spend a lot of money on this old vintage pick from this artist that you love who's been and gone, and you go to look at it one day and it's dust. I had a few that from back in the day, you know, caught at shows, and obviously I kept those. Everybody likes to go for the coin holders, and they work well until the pick eats itself from the inside out. And so I've lost a few from over the years that I physically caught before the business. You know, I was just a fan out there buying tickets and going to shows, and they're dust.
Yeah, I see some of these prices on these vintage picks, and I'm like, there's no way. There's no way.
No, yeah, it's I'm the same way with vinyl, and with vinyl, I feel like vinyl will last probably forever, and it's much bigger, and you can listen to it. You can actually use it, and I
Yeah, right.
still won't pay, those prices that they're asking for some of this stuff.
Yeah.
So
It's crazy, right? It's crazy
it
how,
is.
you know.
So I get it, and that's part of the reason I think I've kind of leaned away from collecting a bit too,
Yeah.
especially with the world we live in today, the internet, the even the greed. So it's just kind of like, if I get lucky and I find that album I've been looking for $30, I'm going to buy it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it can sit there in front of me for 300 for years. I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah. I have a friend that's in the record business, and I just call him and I go, "Hey, I'm looking for this, but this is all I'm gonna pay."
Well, now I have a friend who has a friend that's in the record business, so I'll start calling you, and you can call him.
Will do, will do. What was the one phone call, man, you got from a band that you like, one of your favorite bands? Has that ever happened, like unprovoked? Like, as long as I've known you, you've never reached out and said, "Hey, use our picks." It's always been word of mouth with you.
Yeah,
But
and
what
that's
was the
probably
one
a
phone call
good.
you got from a band that you were like, "Holy shit"?
Well, and I don't like go begging. I will.
Mhm.
I rely on that word of mouth, and that might be a good or bad business practice. But I'm not going to beg you and push and push and push to get someone to use something that they're not interested in. But I would say early on, I think it was probably 2003, 2004. I mentioned Chimera earlier, and
Mhm.
those guys were just starting. We were just starting. We got hooked up, and we've been working together. And Matt had made a comment. He's like, "I know Kerry King." I'm like, "That's cool." He goes, I'll let him know that you're out here and whatnot." And I was like, "Well, cool." I never thought much of it. So I'm driving up to, this was back, I had to drive 45, 50 minutes just to get to a Walmart. Now, I'm in a pretty, country area. We now have our own Walmart, hooray, but not really. But we do have a Walmart. But long story short, I'm driving up to Walmart. It's in the evening. It's dark. I'm tired. I just want to get there, get what I need, get home. Phone rings, unknown number. I answer it, and it says, "Hey, man, this is Kerry King, Slayer. This Bert." And I was just kind of like, Yeah, and that took me back. It was still early on. So, a
Yeah,
lot of the bands that I was working with, they were known bands, but it wasn't that,
on
wow
that
factor,
level.
you know. Yeah. And so for him to call me out of the blue one night, taking a trip to Walmart, for a minute or two, I had to feel him out, make sure it was him. And it was. And we worked together for years, from that night on. And
Right on,
so
man.
that was one of the, but then, as the years go on, you just get these calls. Eddie Ojeda from Twisted Sister, the first time he called, I was actually still in the garage at that point. And I grew up listening to Twisted Sister. So, Eddie calls, and I'm like, wow, this is cool. Can we
Yeah.
do a conference call with JJ, type thing, which eventually happened, uh, so yeah, over the years, people will call and I've gotten accustomed to it. I'm used to it now, but as things were just progressing, I'll answer the phone and be like, John Oates is on the phone for you, stuff like that. So I mean, just it's been really cool.
Yeah. Well, man, that's one of the things I've always admired about you. Like, I guess you and I met back, like I said, 2007. It was a cold call. I think I'd seen someone with one of your picks, and I called you, and I wanted picks made for the country artist I was working with. And I've always admired that about you. You've never been the salesman. You're like, you let your product speak for itself. And I mean, we've left and come back, and you've never like been, like, oh, it didn't work out for you, so now, you've always just been fucking real, man. And 22 years later, that says a lot. You're still doing it, and this is your only gig. Do you miss the Firehouse, by the way?
I do. I
Yeah.
do. I probably have a few many aches and pains these days to be doing that.
Yeah.
Now, truthfully, I probably wouldn't have the aches and pains if I was still doing it. I'd probably be in a little better shape, than wandering around an office all day.
Yeah.
But no, I do. I miss it. I still keep up with some of the guys up there that I worked with. I still listen to calls locally because I volunteered for years as well. So I was paid and volunteer. Excuse me. So I was actually a certified EMT in high school. So I'd actually leave school sometimes for volunteer ambulance calls and things like that. And I was certified as a firefighter before I graduated and before I was even old enough to go inside of a burning structure. So it'd been something I was always into. So I do miss it, and it's still in my blood. Sometimes I kind of wish I was still there. I've got friends who are retiring right now, and so it's kind of wow to see them retiring. I started with them. I could be
Yeah.
retiring now, maybe piddling with this. I also remember all the kind of laying around resting up for that big call. There's not a whole lot of resting that goes on around here. When it's your own gig, it's 24/7.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
You
walking
got to
out
take
the
that
door.
call at 3 a.m.
Not anymore. That I've changed. On the weekends and after hours. I mean, it's going to be you're going to play hell probably getting a hold of me.
Yeah.
So it's just that after this amount of time, I'm still me, and we're still doing what we're doing. But I've also got to the point I got to have a little bit of time, and so I do try to punch out. Doesn't always happen. I'll still get that random call sometimes, in the evening that I will opt to take, or sometimes you get that real quick, voicemail.
Yeah.
That everybody knows. It's like, oh man, they actually hit that button on me. They sent me straight to voicemail. But no, I do still enjoy it, and I do appreciate, all the clients and everyone who's stuck with us over the years.
Is there one client you don't have that you just kind of, since you're not a salesman, that you just wish would approach you?
Well, that one client has become a client. So Jimmy Buffett was my white whale.
Oh,
And oddly enough, when it comes to my music preferences, I'm a big, metal and Metallica fan, but then I can flip. And I'm probably 3 or 4 weeks away from listening to nothing but Jimmy Buffett for the rest of the summer, and that sort of thing. So I've always been a parrot head, and I've had a few of my metal guys. They call me up, and Buffett's playing on my ringtone, and they're like, "Oh, I still can't believe this." But always been a parrot head. Always kind of had the feelers out. I know a ton of people who have like connections, but no one really had connections.
yeah.
That camp is a very tight, small, camp. So I could just never get my foot in the door. And it's probably pushing about a year now, just inside of a year. I was talking to the right person one day, and he's like, I know him.
Wow.
And he's like, here, just start working with him. Here you go. And so that was my white whale, and he'll be retiring probably any day now. But he's getting to that point that he should probably go and enjoy life off the road.
Yeah.
But no, that was my white whale, and so I can't really say at this point that there's anybody that we haven't printed for that I would like to print for. There are a few artists out there that are nestled in where they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're not going to go anywhere, whether it be contracts or just they're getting specialty stuff made for them, whatever the case may be. So, there's some that you just don't even, it's like, yeah, that'd be awesome, but it's just not going to happen. You move on.
Yeah.
And you go for the ones that you think you can make it happen. And and even some of those bands that we don't work with or may never work with, we have still worked with in some way, shape, or form, even if it's just promotional, through, like right now, for example, we're doing guitar picks for the new Metallica tour. But it's all for the VIP setup,
Yeah.
Those guys, they use a competitor. That's where they're going to stay, I'm sure. It is what it is, but we're doing the VIP stuff, so it's still cool. Our
Yeah.
guys in production love seeing that come through the equipment and love printing it. So we've had our hands on probably a little bit of everybody, and from big guys to small guys and everybody in between.
Right on, man. That's what I love about you guys. I've always dealt with you. You've never treated like this band, you treat everyone the same.
No, and that's always kind of been my goal. Now, I'm not
Yeah.
going to say there aren't some bands that excite me a little
Yeah.
bit more than others. It's like, oh, yeah, or, you get that random call sometimes because, a lot of times I'm dealing with you guys. I'm dealing with you guys that make the show happen, the crew and all that. And in some cases, I know the artist very well also. In some cases, I don't. In some cases, it's a casual thing. I see them out at a show. We say hello talk for a few minutes. Sometimes, go to dinner before the show or whatever. So it's very, it's all over the place, but I look at it as we're all people, they might have a talent or, a lot of people may know who they are, but they're still people. And so I try not to, I'm not going to say I haven't gotten starstruck a couple times, but we're all just people. So, and I feel like everybody that comes to us as a client, we have different levels of deals and things of that nature, but you're going to be treated the same regardless because you're a client. So,
well, man, I appreciate you taking the time, dude. You've been around, you said 2000, dude. I hope you're around forever, as long as you want to be. Like I said, I've always enjoyed working with you. I know when my email comes through, I know you always like, because it's going to be something like, I need them tomorrow.
No, that actually isn't the case. I do have a few, which is why we've created like the shelving system and stuff like that. We call it the shelving system because it sounds better than the babysitting system, which is really what it is, and so that's worked really well where we'll have, bands that are like, all right, give me 5 bags now and put 2 bags on the shelf.
Yeah.
And it's funny, sometimes they'll forget that they have bags on the shelf and they'll call and they'll be like, look, we leave in 3 days. And I'll be like, it's just not possible. It's Thursday, you got the week, all this stuff, and I'm like, but guess what? You've got 2 bags on the shelf. They're bought, they're paid for, they're printed, and they can ship today. So it's that things like that have helped, get you guys out of a jam out there.
Yeah. I've also always loved that you don't have a minimum order.
That's something to, we did that. That can cause problems, but our minimum is 1 bag, 100 pick. But, we did that so that anybody can get picks, the average person doesn't need 100 guitar picks. Now you're going to have to go with 100 of them, but it's much better than 400 or 600 or 1,000.
Yeah.
And it also allows for variety. Where it gets a little tricky sometimes is this new fad of let's do a bag of picks for every city we're going to on this tour. And so that can get to be a little bit on the chaotic side.
Yeah.
2 or 3 artists in a band playing 70 shows, you can do the math there. It's a lot of bags, but they're all individual bags. And so, that creates a lot of artwork. A lot of, and things like that. So it can cause some chaos, but it was done with the intentions of allowing everyone, to be able to get picks. So we're not just here. We sell direct, and I've maintained the artist relations aspect of it, which is why, you get me when you call and things like that. So I still handle our artists. We have great customer service staff that handles our, general, customers. But that was the thing. We wanted to make sure that a general customer, whether it be 13-year-old kid just rocking out in his neighborhood band or someone that's, playing the local, bar scene, can all get guitar picks and not have to get a million of them and not have to, break the bank to do it.
Yeah. And I'm, honestly, that's where I saw your pick. It was a local band in Dallas and he had his own pick. And I asked him and he's like, man, this guy, he gave me the name of the company and he goes, he does them out of his garage.
It's funny because over the years that has been kind of used by competitors as a bad thing. And, I'm like, I'm not sure how you consider that bad. We started from the ground up in my backyard, and we've grown with our customers over the years who were starting in their local pub and this and that. Everything's got to start somewhere. And
Yeah.
this thing started on a very low budget in a garage. And to me, it's kept things grounded. Nobody gave me X amount and said, here, go buy yourself a big building and a ton of equipment and create this, guitar pit company.
Yeah.
Had they done that, I probably would not be the same that I am. If you don't have to work for it, you're just not going to appreciate it.
Yeah.
So it's funny when I see certain things like that still today in some FAQs on certain websites. No, we are not in our garage, and not like, it's kind of funny sometimes, because you think of some of these large companies, these Fortune 500 $1 billion companies, and that's where they started.
Yeah.
So I chuckle at that, but I also appreciate the fact that that's where I started. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Bert, I appreciate your time, man. I appreciate your friendship. I'm glad I know that you don't collect footballs anymore, so I won't be looking out for you. I'm always on the lookout for footballs for you.
Actually, you did, yeah, and you mentioned that which player was it? I'm drawing a blank. Like I said, my memory is horrible.
Tony Romo. I think I got you.
No, it was not a Tony Romo, because I would not have accepted that, being a Redskins fan. I would have thanked you.
Who
was it?
He was a Cowboy player, but from the 70s. My buddy, it's his uncle.
There was another one. There was the Jets. He was a Jets player, I thought.
There's been a few that I've asked you, hey, do you like this guy? But I can't remember now.
And just FYI, it's not that I don't collect footballs anymore, hint, hint, but I don't collect footballs. At some point you find yourself going, I have
too
enough.
many balls.
Yep. Right. And I don't need to go buy any more. And excuse me. And that's just like guitars and anything else. Actually, one other quick thing. So, my wife's pretty good with all this stuff, and I try to spend my money on vinyl and tools these days. But every now and then, someone does, send me something very cool. And a little while back, this guitar shows up at the office, and my wife happened to be standing there when they delivered it, and she just stopped in her tracks and gave me a look that I did not want. It was not a look I wanted to see. And all I could do was look at her and say, I don't know. I did not order this. I promise. I can't wait to open it and see what it is. But I did not order this. But you could simply tell it was a guitar. And you know how that looks. A nice rectangular box. You always know it's a guitar. Plus, it did have a company name, from one end to the other. And so, I got a very evil look. I opened it up. She believed me. I did not purchase that guitar. It was a very, very nice gift from someone I've worked with quite a bit over the years. And so in the end, she was happy. I was happy. And then I had to give a guitar away to make room for it. So I kind of paid it forward.
Yeah.
And gave one of mine away to somebody who needed one at the time. So I do still collect. I just don't buy anymore.
while you were telling me that story, I remember it was Joe Green.
Yes, it was.
Green.
Yep.
Well, man, again, thank you for doing this. Thanks. I know you're a busy guy, man. One more question. My podcast is called Is Breakfast Included? And if we were having breakfast, Bert, what would you have?
See, no question you ask is actually that simple. I love breakfast, but I don't eat breakfast. I can't eat in the morning. So for some reason, but I would say my typical breakfast for dinner would be bacon, eggs with a side of chocolate chip Eggos.
Nice.
And Scrapple. Got to have Scrapple.
You're the second Scrapple guy I've had this is our third year going into this. Another friend of mine that's a drum tech mentioned Scrapple. That's a very odd,
You had to have had it, but do you eat Scrapple or no?
I've never had Scrapple.
Never had it.
No. I'll have to try it.
I'm gonna have to find me a little freezer box and send you out a little bit of our local Scrapple.
I'll
make
try it.
Mental note. So, but yeah, so we do go all out when we have breakfast for dinner. It's bacon, eggs, Scrapple, and I still like a good old Eggo every now and then. You got to throw something out of a box in there, and load it up with syrup and good to go.
Hell yeah, man. Well, Bert, have a great day, man. I like I said, I appreciate this. I know I've been bugging you, and for everyone listening, I did have to twist his arm to do this, but I appreciate you doing this for me, man.
No problem. I appreciate you asking. Yes, my arm's still a little sore, but I figured if I just kept saying no, then you were just going to keep emailing me and asking. So I do appreciate it. It's not something I do very often. I just don't really feel comfortable. But I like to just kind of hide in the shadows. But no, I appreciate you asking, and hopefully you'll have more than 10, 15 listeners to this one.
No,
I don't know. They might skip on by.
No,
anyone listening, Aiden's the one you want to listen to. You want to go to Aiden's podcast.
Aiden Mullen.
Yep, you want to go listen to Aiden.
Well, Bert, you have a great day, man, and I hope to cross paths with you soon.
Absolutely, I'll keep an eye on your schedule.
And, do that. If you
get to Virginia, let me know.
We'll do, man.
We'll get together and have breakfast.
Let's do it for dinner.
Hey, there you go. There you go.
Have a great day, brother.
All right, man. You too. Thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bert LeCato, InTune Guitar Picks. You can find them online at InTuneGP.com. Check it out. It's a real simple process. I've done it several times. A lot. If you're a local band, you're on a budget, and you only have to order 100, and then all your fans will think you're cool because you're flicking out these guitar picks. And they say, whatever your band's name and whatever clever thing you put on there. But check it out. Bert's a great guy. Like I said, he really didn't want to do this. This is not his thing, but I really appreciate him taking the time to talk to us today. And I hope you learned a lot about how this guitar pick industry works. All right, guys, I am done. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next week.